Hello. Thank you for having me in this forum. It's really an honor to be here in this session hosted by the Express Group. Really honored that I've been invited to talk on a topic which I think is not usually talked about. So let me share some slides that I have prepared as well, which will help to talk through these points a little bit more effectively. Okay. So, really, the perspective that I want to bring here is keeping the technology career paths in mind. How can we strengthen the capabilities that is needed for the technology and technical people that is working in the IT industry, in pharma as well as in other industries? So there are set career paths that we see on how people can thread through. But actually, I believe there are possibly other career paths which we are not leveraging enough, and hence there is usually a gap in terms of what an individual wants to become, or what they are actually good at becoming, or what their actual strengths are versus what they end up being. So many of them end up being in not so natural roles that they actually fit in. But because of the lack of understanding on how they can play their roles and create their own paths, maybe even industry can think a little bit more in terms of creating different paths which can actually leverage the strength and strengthen the capabilities that of the people that is playing here. So that's the perspective that I want to bring in. Before I go into that in more detail, I think I'd like to talk a little bit about our life in general as well. So when we talk about even us, I think when we grew up, or when our kids are now growing up, the thought process starts. I mean, around I think grade 8, 9 onwards. In terms of what are the options after grade 12. So typically we will see that they are pushed towards, or sometimes guided towards a few different paths which a lot of people have treaded already and made some decent enough success, and have a decent enough lifestyle being led. And these are usually science, commerce, and maybe a little bit of arts. But what we do not realize is that there are a lot of other fields, or a lot of other areas that people can actually go after based on their natural aptitude and strength. When I put this, a little bit, probably extra point that I've made here is that you don't need a doctor or an engineer or a preacher or a lawyer every day in your life. But actually, if you have to survive and live, you need a farmer to put the food on the table every day. How many of us really think, or enable our next generation to think non-conventional career paths, which can actually be very meaningful for the individual as well as for the economy and the organizations at large? So this is actually about taking a set path versus discovering own career paths. So it can be seen as an opportunity, or the other way around, the problem that we face. And I think we have to realize this starts at home. Are we ready to let our next generation explore and find their journey paths? So this is a question at large, in terms of not just a specific industry, but in the way that we approach career paths of our own people, our own kids, our own next generation. So this is where it starts. Now, if I now start talking about a typical career path, you will see that all of us would have started as a trainee, or an analyst, or a developer, and then you work your way up by getting into project management, the program management, or in delivery management. And then slowly, over the years, you start getting into leadership roles, team leads, maybe a little bit of architecture, architect roles, and then you work your way up. The point here is that there is a unilateral, more or less, there is a unilateral way of building your career and moving up. And as we know, because of the way the different technologies emerge, because of the way that new areas that are emerging, this is always under construction as well. How you tread your path through these, different blocks that you need to go through. So this is a typical career path that we see in the industry these days. Now, if you really take a step back, and really think about what are some of the problems that we see as a leader, or as a team lead, or as or an architect lead, or as an operations lead. I think sometimes, or many times, we find it very hard to find specialists with deep expertise. And why is that? I think we really need to think about this by taking a very unbiased view on why is that happening. Now, it has happened in my career, in my life. There have been people in my team, my peers, where I've talked to. They enjoy what they're doing. It could be somebody who's really good in certain technologies, maybe a networking technology, or maybe a data center technology. Or if we look at in pharma, somebody who's really going to be good in computer system verification. Or if you look at how to run effective manufacturing lines using technology, can you start looking at the data that is coming out of it, and really become specialist in driving data analytics, where you can improve the yield of the line, or the throughput of a line, or reduce the utility cost of my manufacturing line, and so on and so forth. So these are all domain expertise and technical expertise areas that I am talking about. So there are people who get into these areas, who start learning about these areas, who start doing certain things and delivering outcomes and results. But then slowly the pressure of growth comes in. Okay. Now, when that pressure comes in, not just from the organization that they are working in, and not just from the peers who they have, but also from the society at large. When I say the society at large, it is also the family, it is the friends. There's always an expectation on you to grow. Now, when somebody who is actually enjoying doing this deep technical expertise oriented work, they look around and see people growing who is actually following a management, or the so-called management career path. Now, they are naturally going to feel forced to start moving in that direction. So that means they're going to start focusing less and less on areas what they really enjoy doing, or what they're really good at naturally, and and where they have the aptitude to go deeper and deeper and become the so-called experts in that area. So I think it is really high time that we recognize that this is the problem that we are facing, and we need to invest as leaders of this industry. We need to start investing a lot more in developing this kind of expertise. We have to become the catalyst to drive the innovation that can come out of the deep technical expertise. So this is a usual problem that I see, and I hope people who are hearing this also feel and experience this on a daily basis wherever they are. So essentially, what we are talking about is making a choice and making a concerted effort in developing and facilitating career paths, which can, on one hand, be a technical career path, or on the other hand, it could be a management career path. So, I still remember one of the people who used to work in my team. This individual was already doing a network-oriented role for the past 3 years, if I remember correctly. And then, in the annual review came up, and the question that he had for me was, how do I now grow? Fortunately or unfortunately, in that particular case, I had to tell him that, he has to start doing other things other than the network area. So I was also a young leader at that point in time. But what ended up happening in that situation is that I diverted the focus of this particular individual from the area that he was good at into other areas. And this particular case, he started managing a project which had not just about network, but also a large project where there was application development work, there was data center oriented work, there was actually a manufacturing line integration work had to be done as well in that particular case. But sadly, this individual could not do justice to that particular role, and because he's not naturally good at managing people, or managing that particular program management need of organizing every piece of work, putting it into a structured way, going after people and making it happen. He was not really good at doing that. So somebody who was really doing well for the past few years in the expertise area that he was in ended up being an underperformer because he wanted to grow, and he got into an area where he was not naturally not good at, and he could not develop it either himself. So this is one of the examples that I myself had. And in hindsight, when I look at it, I think I also made a mistake in guiding him in the wrong direction. So I think the time has come that as organizations, we need to now start building career paths in our organization. And this is not just the so-called horizontal growth that I am talking about, but there has to be ways people can grow vertically as well by building expertise in specific domain areas. So when I talk about pharma, for example, there is data-oriented work and digital transformation-oriented work that is building up in many of the pharmaceutical organizations. And I already see young people who have started working in this area since the last couple of years, talking about getting into, the growth-oriented, path discussions, and hence not focusing on developing further expertise in area. We all know that this is an area where there isn't enough expertise in the market. There isn't enough proof points of success being delivered. So hence, it is still a very, very nascent stage where people have to develop their skills. But before even they have delivered anything really meaningful, they have started talking about growth, which is actually diverting their focus. So, there are different number of cases that I can talk about here, and I'm sure you can think about it as well in your field. So, we have to work with our HR colleagues, with our leadership in the organization on how do we create experts who can be our go-to people, either for designing new things, innovation-oriented technology innovation in our products that we are selling, or the wicked problems that we face in terms of solving those. These career paths are equally important compared to the management career path, where people with leadership skills who can paint the vision, who can build teams, who can develop teams, who can hold the teams together, who can actually really have good relationships built with different stakeholders and manage the execution. Both of these career paths are equally important, and we need to facilitate growth of these technical experts without them getting into areas like people management where they are not good at, or in a program management which they are not good at, and they should be valued in the organization equally. So this is a dire need, in my opinion, where we are continuously losing expertise because of the growth-oriented thought process. So the point that I'm trying to make again is that we have to make paths in the organizations where these expertise can be rewarded appropriately, not just financially, not by giving them fresh challenges, not by just getting in another solution delivered, but by actually giving them growth. And there has to be a path that they can aspire to. Probably a bunch of people who become really the go-to people in organization. I don't know, 4 people, 5 people, maybe 7 people in the organization. That is the ultimate career path that they can get to. Whereas in the management ladder, you might go into these defined positions that we already have. So we have to make this dual career path equally attractive, so that as organizations, as teams, we are going to be path breakers. We are going to do things which have never been done in the past. Okay, so the question that we all should ask is, are we willing as leadership, as people who are responsible citizens in these organizations, are we ready to address this in our industry, the organization, or in our teams? I would encourage, the Express Group and similar forums to really encourage these kind of conversations alongside the technical discussions that we do, alongside the domain discussions that we do. I think this is a very, very important topic that we need to explore further. And one company addressing it is not going to solve the problem, because if somebody is building a career in my organization and for whatever reason they end up moving to another organization, and if they don't, if their expertise career path that has been developed in one organization is not valued by other organization, and hence they end up losing by making that move, or they are unable to move because they have been developing their career path in this direction, then that is not going to help. So that is why I think it is important not just for one organization or one leader to really look at this. It is very important as an industry, as the CIO community or the technology community. We have to really look at this as an industry need, and hence start developing this kind of career path. So this is the topic that I wanted to really bring attention to. I hope I have been able to make my point. This is something which has been in my mind for quite some time, and I'm really happy that the Express Group has given me the chance to bring this topic in front of the people who is listening to this talk. Thank you very much.